What does it mean to be a leader in today's military? It's not always what you see in the movies. Sometimes it's about navigating complex bureaucracy one minute and mentoring a young airman the next. It's about balancing a high-stakes military career with a civilian life, family, and personal growth. It's a journey of constant adaptation, learning, and connection. Our guest today embodies this modern military leader. He's a full-time wing commander in the Air National Guard, but his path to command was anything but a straight line. It's a story that starts in Southern California, winds through the challenges of juggling ROTC with college athletics, and ultimately leads to a position of significant influence and responsibility. Today, we're pulling back the curtain to explore that journey. We'll discuss how crucial mentorship is in shaping a career and hear about the influential figures who provided him with his invaluable leadership lessons. Lessons in empathy, emotional intelligence, and the power of networking. We'll also get his frontline perspective on the future of the Air Force, the challenges of recruiting the next generation, and the incredibly diverse and inspiring stories of the citizen airmen serving in the Guard. This conversation is for anyone interested in leadership, not just in the military, but in any field. It's about how to build a career with intention, how to lift others up as you climb, and how the lessons learned in uniform can shape every aspect of your life. From dealing with frustrating fitness standards to the profound connections made through a shared mission, we cover it all. So get ready to dive deep into the heart of military leadership, mentorship, and the inspiring people who answer the call to serve. CJ Johnson, welcome to Voice for Valor.
So you work in California as a traditional guardsman, as a group commander, but where do you actually live?
Yeah, that's how I was hired. Interestingly, as soon as I was hired, my wing commander socialized, hey, would you be interested in being a full-time commander? Because we don't have full-time leadership at the group. And specifically, he wanted to advance a few strategic initiatives. And since I'm from the area, from Southern California, living in Tampa, I was like, heck yeah, I'd love to move back to Southern California. So even though I was hired DSG as a part-timer, it's only been full-time. So my wife and I moved from Tampa to Southern Cal, specifically Marina Del Rey in the South Bay area of LA. So it turns out my group command will be full-time.
Okay. So why were you guys living in Tampa? What was going on there?
Do you know, there's folks in, I'm sure your orbit that their long-term plan is to either live in different places. You may have heard this sort of thesis, like have maybe a main hub, and then they'll spoke to different places throughout the year, given different conditions like weather or maybe family. Well, Heather's my wife, we were already implementing that plan, and Tampa was going to be either a main hub or one of the hubs from which we'd spoke. So we actually just moved to Tampa, not unrelated to any professional endeavors or career. I just wanted to get started having Tampa as a main resident, especially like Florida citizenship. And then from there, as the core sort of residence, then establish actually a presence in Southern California. This is going to sound wild too. I promise you, this isn't fake news, but also Portugal and different places based on the time of the year, especially related to weather. So Tampa, that was it. And then Florida. I don't know if you've been to Florida, but in Florida's got everything. It's got the full host of movie characters that are serious, shenanigans. There's sports. There's private capital. There's growing businesses. It's a lot of fun.
So yes, I am very familiar with Florida. I was going to ask you, where in Tampa are you guys residing? Because my wife is from Lakeland, Florida.
Definitely.
Which is, I don't know, 45 minutes outside of Tampa.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
So I know a lot of military folks live in Brandon, or are you living up north? I forget the place up north. Manatee. Is there a place called Manatee?
There is. Yeah, we kind of did something different. We lived just right near the airport, west of the airport on Rocky Point. If you're familiar with the Courtney Campbell Causeway that goes from Tampa to Clearwater.
Okay, yeah.
Right before you leave the Tampa part, there's a little neighborhood called Rocky Point, and it's about literally less than 10 minutes from the airport. So we had a place there.
Okay, because oh my gosh, traffic on those 2 or 3 bridges that go to Clearwater and St. Pete. Oh my gosh, that traffic is brutal.
Brutal. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people say, "Oh, DC, how can you live there? The traffic's so bad." I'm like, when I was a commander in Charlotte, I lived 16 miles from work. It took me an hour to get home every day. Every day. Here in DC, I live about 12 miles from the house. Bad day, 45 minutes. Typical day, half an hour.
Are you in Virginia or Maryland?
I'm in Virginia. I live in Fairfax, so right off the 495 Parkway. So when you were here for school, where did they have you staying?
Interestingly, going back to my idea from before, we as one of the spokes we had was in Virginia, and we already
Okay.
had a place in Fairfax, also in Fairfax. So right near the Fair Oaks Mall, if you're familiar with that area.
Yeah. Yeah. My son's basketball practice tonight is right out by the Fair Oaks Mall. I live right off Little River Turnpike,
Oh, cool.
um, in Fairfax. So I'm between Little River Turnpike and the 50 Lee Highway.
Yeah, it's a good
So a
place.
little area called Mantua. So when I first moved here, I was a young major, and I was working for a general officer who lived in this area, and he said, "Mike, just buy a house, live here." I was like, "Sir, it's way too expensive. I can't afford that." And he said, "Just extend yourself. It'll be okay because you'll never have to worry about renting it." So he said, every time you go out for command or you do another assignment, you can rent your place. It has worked out perfectly. So the first time when I went out to the squadron command, it was not vacant for a single day. We moved out on, say, June 30th. Renters moved in July 1st, and then vice versa. When we came back, the renters rolled out, and they liked it so much where we lived that they bought a house just a couple blocks down the road in the Wakefield area.
Wow.
And then the next rental, the next time, same thing. Very next day, I put it on Realtor.com or Zillow.com or something like that. It was rented in half an hour. Four separate bidders trying to rent the place, and same thing. It was a Air Force colonel getting ready to retire, and he bought in our neighborhood. So he lives just a couple blocks from me now. So it's a great location. I tell General Tahiri all the time, I'm like, "Sir, you are absolutely right. Great area, just wonderful neighbors." I mean, we have hail and farewells in our neighborhood. I got
Wow.
a 82-year-old '06 that lives just a few houses down. He came to my '06 retirement, or excuse me, my '06 promotion, and he brought his full bird rank from when he was a colonel and gave it to me as a gift for promotion. So just I think about those kind of neighborhoods. How many people do you know that have neighbors like that? It's just not that common anymore.
Yeah, you actually live in a community. That's awesome.
Yeah, just very kind and caring folks all around us here in the Mantua area. But one thing I was going to ask you is you got that Washington State shirt on and still looking extra swole. So how much grief do you get in the California area or even in the Tampa area wearing your Washington State gear?
Well, Mike, Washington State's one of those universities that has such a non-existent academic reputation that
Yeah,
most folks look at Washington State as, oh, it's one of those periphery schools from the old school Pac-10, old school Pac-12, and now it's a little
yeah.
more. Folks are a little bit more aware because there's only two teams left in the artist formerly known as the Pac-12, us and Oregon State. So we get a lot of positive shout-outs, like, oh, Washington State dude, or if you're a Washington State grad or you go there, our quote unquote mating sign to each other when we see each other in the wild is go go Cougs. So we say, so I get a ton of that, and I've always gotten a ton of that. But it's even more wilder in the last few weeks. I don't know. Have you seen the payouts yet for the college football playoffs? For the
No,
universities? Yeah.
no.
If when you get a moment, jump on your whatever search engine you use and look at the top like 15 schools with the highest payout already from the college football playoff. Washington State and Oregon State are two of the highest.
Because they don't have to share with their conference or
They're
whoa. So they're
they're still earning revenue from the Pac-12's teams
uh,
that represented in the current college football playoff. So Arizona State and Oregon, when they played, their payouts that were going to be distributed to the conference and the teams went to Oregon State and Washington State.
wow.
Wild, right?
One of the guys in my legislative affairs office, he went to Oregon State, and he was so upset when they dissolved
Hmm.
the conference, and I was as well. I just felt so bad for Wazoo and Oregon State. So even though I've always been a UW fan, I was kind of glad you guys won this year against UW because I was like, yeah, the stepbrother, he got his recognition and apparently got some payout from playing that game.
Mike, I wish every Washington State grad or student could hear what you just said. You just made their day.
No, I didn't go to UW. I tried to go there, but they weren't going to give me enough scholarship money to play baseball. They just said, "Well, you can walk on." I was like, I really need some money, so
Yeah.
so I didn't go. But growing up, I was always a UW fan. One of my cousins, we talked about this before, but for the listeners, one of my cousins walked on at University of Washington as
Hmm.
a linebacker, and Coach Neuheisel loved him so much that ended up giving him a scholarship, and I think he
Hmm.
did a lot of special teams play and stuff like that by the end of his career. So he's got a Rose Bowl ring, he's got his helmet encased in this fancy plexiglass thing at his mom's house. But from the Wazoo perspective, I think I told you that my cousin Jeremy was an offensive lineman, and I think you guys were pretty close to the same time. I graduated college in '98. I think he was 1 year ahead of me, so he probably graduated in '97. But when we came out to play you guys in baseball, he came to my game, and so I know he was there. I want to say I was there in '97. I came out and played Wazoo in '97. So
Wow. Yeah.
the Hawaiian kids were not ready for that cold weather. It was hilarious. When we were on I-90 driving over the pass that particular year, there was a lot of snow. Guys were getting out, taking off their shirts, running around in the snow, taking pictures. It was hilarious.
I can
So, but
imagine.
yeah, you guys were around there at the same time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fall '97. So that was our Rose Bowl year, and I redshirted that year. But fall '97, that was a special year. You're right, though. All the kids. So most of the team, even this year or throughout the most years, the team comprises Southern Californians. So and we always have Hawaiian players. So between the Southern Cal and Hawaiian players, when it starts to get cold and snow, we're just like, what the heck is this? Unsure. That's why we don't do recruiting trips during those times. 'Cause I'm unsure
Yeah.
they'd always get kidding. But yeah, that's small world, very small world, Mike.
So a kid from California, how did you even find out about Wazoo? They just had the best scholarship opportunity, or what made you choose that university?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I had the same similar background than you. Like, actually, just before going into that point, could you imagine if we were in this era and we had an opportunity to earn name, image, and likeness?
Well,
Fun.
I was never good enough to get some of that money. I was just good enough to make the team, just good enough to get a scholarship, and not good enough to be the star of the team. So I would have never collected on that cash. But you're absolutely right. That would have been a nice option.
That would have been an interesting factor in some of our decision making, I think. For me, in growing up in Southern Cal, Washington State wasn't on my radar. In fact, most of my recruiting was from, I don't know if it even exists anymore, schools that are, I guess, now part of the FCS. And in fact, of all the this is the Pac-10 era, Pac-10 schools were to where I got a letter. University of Washington was the only school to send a letter. During like the spring of my senior year, I was actually headed to play junior college basketball at Lower Columbia Community College in the state of Washington.
Oh yeah,
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 you might know it because
yeah. We played LCC. We played LCC all the time when I was in community college.
powerhouse baseball at JUCO, right?
It was just sports in general. They
Yeah,
take their sports really serious there.
yeah, exactly. The basketball coach there, Jim Roffler, had a really. I mean, I just love the way the scheme is. If you're into high tempo, lots of shots at the rim, very just basically fatiguing the opponent by going up and down and getting a lot of shots up on the rim. Love that offense. And so that was headed there. At the last minute, actually, Washington State's Air Force ROTC department called and said, "Hey, we saw that you applied for a national scholarship. I mean, you're not smart enough to get it, but hey, like we know you're also. We could tell. We also I don't know how they discovered this, but they all. Oh, I think no, they called my school, and they found out my athletic background. Hey, we can't offer you like a full scholarship. We can offer you some money, and if you're okay with that, we can also advocate for you to be an invited walk-on to the Washington State's program." And I was just sort of surprised a ROTC detachment would even consider that kind of wild arrangement. So, dude, I didn't even go to a recruiting trip. I didn't even go to a recruiting trip to Pullman. I did most of my recruiting trips to other schools, and I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna play junior college basketball. I'm not gonna focus on football. And so, sorry for the long story, but when I got a call in from the athletic department, the football coach, specifically my DB coach, Craig Gray, he's like, "Hey, CJ, got your information. Can you send us some tape?" I was like, "Yeah." So I sent him a tape, a collage tape, and later that day, or no, the next day, I got a call from Craig, and he's like, "Hey, to the point that your ROTC colleagues have articulated, we'd love to have you as an invited walk-on." And I was like, "Awesome, I'm in." Didn't even like want to know about where. I didn't even know it was located, Mike. I didn't know where in Washington it was
Ooh,
located.
that's how they recruited you. They didn't tell you where it was
Yeah,
located.
exactly. They got me. They got me, man. Get that Southern Cal kid before he even knows where it is on the map. And yeah, so
Where in Southern California? LA, San Diego? Where exactly from?
yeah, San Fernando Valley in Van Nuys, Sherman Oaks area. I'm from that border between Sherman Oaks and Van Nuys. Actually, this is kind of 360 or full circle for me. Being the ops group commander in the Cali Guard and being an installation commander at Sepulveda Air Guard Station, I grew up 8 minutes from that installation. Can't make that up, Mike.
You joined the Air Force to see the world, and you ended up stationed 8 minutes from your backyard.
Such an Air Force story.
It is. I grew up in University Place, Washington, a
Yeah.
small little suburb outside of Tacoma, just south of Seattle. And I was in the Air Force for 4 years before I went to pilot training, and I flew C-17s at McChord Air Force Base, right where I grew up. So it was cool. I mean, I didn't think about it as, oh my gosh, I signed up to do all these things all over the world. I looked at it as I get to see all these amazing things that I always wanted to see, but from high up. I mean, flying around Mount Rainier, flying around Mount St. Helens. One time we were coming home from a mission. It was just a beautiful, beautiful West Coast day. And we're going across the Olympic Mountains, and we're literally giggling like school children. Like, we're getting paid to see this just 5-star view flying in the Pacific Northwest. But those days were rare, but when they did happen, it was pretty cool.
So true.
So as a ROTC guy, what was that work life balance of, because when I played baseball in college, I mean, we were practicing all the time. I can't imagine that additional responsibility of ROTC. How did you manage that?
Mike, I don't think I managed it well, honestly. Frankly, that was the first sort of initial lesson that I had in life that's carried me forward, is the actual truth behind multitasking and how difficult in my thesis to achieve that myth. It was difficult actually to put forth full energy in academics because I was a STEM guy, ROTC, and then, like you said, all the energy and focus and preparation it takes to be a Division I athlete is tremendous. If for folks that are less familiar, there's the practice and there's the training, and to include weightlifting, but it's a mentality to be the best, and that means there's sacrifices you have to make in your life, particularly related to diet and sleep, so you can be at optimal performance. That I think that comes. It's a trade-off, like many things in life. It came at the expense of actually being an ROTC cadet. That was the one area that I was probably the weakest. Well, no, not probably. According to my deck commander, he definitely said it to me straight to my face, Mike. So I was the weakest there. But
Wow.
yeah, it was. I was fortunate to have good teammates in ROTC, in the debt, folks that are still lifelong friends now. Whenever I had, they knew, because I was very transparent. They knew to help support me when I needed to, in terms, especially getting ready for field training. That was even more focused during the spring. We had to get ready. And that's also for football players when you're really trying to make gains to be competitive for the next fall. So I wasn't necessarily prepared for field training because I also wanted to focus on the opportunity to significantly play the next year. But yeah, it was. But in the end, like I said, the team, my classmates in Rossi were fundamental in helping me stay prepared, keeping me motivated, making sure that I didn't have blind spots. I think, as you maybe you can attest to this too, like your network and your friends, especially your core network, one of their best value propositions to you is highlighting blind spots, not having no fear of letting you know where you're making a mistake, especially a blind spot, and helping you resolve those. So I was fortunate.
Now that you mentioned that, a couple things about college, about how you were saying how serious you have to be as an athlete. My junior year, because after community college, I went to the University of Hawaii my junior year. If I wasn't playing baseball, I was working out. If I wasn't working out, I was at study hall. If I wasn't at study hall, I was in the gym, focusing on the diet. So much so that my entire junior year, I did not drink a single beer the entire year. I mean, the other guys on the team used to make fun of me and call me the temple. They're like, "Oh, Como, you don't put anything in the temple. It's gotta stay pristine." And it was just because I knew that I had this opportunity to go to school for free. I can't screw this up. I mean, I would have never had an opportunity to get a scholarship and walk out of school debt free if it wasn't for sports. So I really focused. And so I was an ass. I wasn't that social butterfly. I was constantly cranking on stuff. And so I can't even imagine having that ROTC piece over my head as well, because now you're competing to try and either get a pilot slot or whatever your dream job is. I heard it can be pretty rough in those ROTC units where if you're not in the right click, you might not get that job that you're seeking.
Yeah, Mike. In fact, that was my pursuit too. That was the core reason I joined Air Force ROTC, was to fly. And I'm not sure if this was the process. I'm sure it was at University of Hawaii. We found out our pilot, whether we made pilot somewhere early in our fall senior year, going to, because we had two semesters, fall, in between the fall and spring. And when I heard I didn't actually get a pilot slot to that end, I saw some counsel from my wing commander, or my deck commander, Yoshi Smith, good dude. He was like, "Hey, CJ, I mean, I think you're a quality guy. Clearly, I think you're talented, competent, but to that end, you didn't. Your peers really made the effort to demonstrate that they were quality applicants to be pilots, and unfortunately, that's the area in which you, of all the things you've done well, that's probably the least. And I only have so many quotas here at the DAT. And that was to that end. Like you said, it was a trade-off and a sacrifice. And like you said, to add the ROTC. But, it turned out really well, Mike. Like, great leadership, by the way, from my DAT commander. I learned a lot from him, too. Just while the door was closed, he provided other opportunities and opened other doors. And his next comment was like, hey, what do you think about traveling the world? And I said, Colonel Smith, sign me up. I am in.
Yeah.
He goes, actually, right now, where the Air Force is, if you become a comm officer, there's an opportunity to go overseas immediately following commission. And that happened almost verbatim. I said, all right, sign. I didn't actually look it up, Mike. I didn't know what a comm officer was. I was like, can I go to Europe? He goes, yes. This is similar to how I got to Washington State. Can I play on the team? Yes. All right. I'm up. I'm in. So,
and they're like, you're leaving the plains of Eastern Washington to now perpetual rain in Europe, but at least there's cool things to see.
Mike, Spokane Airport. I went from Spokane Airport.
Spokane. They have like two gates.
Yeah, I went from Spokane to BWI to jump on the rotator, and then to Ramstein. Yeah.
What years were you at Ramstein? We were there at the same time. We just obviously didn't cross paths because I was constantly flying missions in and out.
Yeah, and plus it's so big, So I was there from 2002 to 2004.
Okay.
And there's so many. The population is so large. Even in the officer corps, there's so. I mean, your operational community, and then all the other officer communities. There are lots of folks that I've met over the years that were there at the same time we were that I didn't ever run into. Our circles never.
Yeah.
I mean, even socially, and we're doing all the same things. I just still never saw them. It's interesting.
So the big hotel had not been built yet when you were there, because I want to say I didn't start flying there till 2005 because I was a late to rate guy, so I didn't go to pilot training until I'd been in for almost 4 years. But now that we're talking about Washington State, when I was out there when ISIS kicked off, I was the RPA, the drone guy, the drone LNO there at the AOC. The deputy JFAC is from Washington State. He's a Cougar. So the two-star deputy J3 was a Washington State grad. When General Brown was the J3, his name escapes me, but he was a 2-star Washington State grad.
Awesome.
I was like, yes, representing.
No doubt.
Man, Wazoo, you guys punch above your weight. You do. They get the most bang for their buck out of such a small school. You guys in Boise State, those are the Pacific Northwest schools that punch above their weight. But okay, so speaking of weight, you are a very muscular guy. So I'm 5'10". How tall are you?
5'9".
Okay, well, the Air Force standards, when I went to MEPS, because I'm an OTS guy, I didn't go through RTC, so I had to go to the standard, medical thing with all the other folks. And at 5'10", I'm pretty sure it was either 194 or 192. That was a magic number. Anything over that, and you didn't pass. So I actually had to cut weight to go, and I literally hit on the number when I stepped on the scale. So what was it like for 5'9"? Did they have waivers for guys that had more muscularity like yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. My entry into the Air Force, I can't recall precisely what year that was at Washington State, but I was at playing weight, which was 203, and at 5'9", 203, that definitely exceeds their criteria for height.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess it was probably in the 180s somewhere for 5'9".
Precisely, and once I made that mark, honestly, it went back to the ROTC detachment, and I think it's simply because I was participating on a varsity sport at Washington State. I got a waiver, but the NCO I see of my detachment did convey to me at the time. He's like, "Goes, CJ, man, you're a lucky guy because Air Force is typically not going to waive your height and weight requirements." Sorry, Mike, I've got someone at the door there, so if you're hearing the background.
Yeah, no worries. And I was going to tell you, if we look kind of pixelated, once it's done, it'll download a HD 4K feed, because there's sometimes you look pixelated, but that's the beauty of this program, is that it's saving all of it on your computer and then it pushes it to the cloud, so we both look sharp on the screen. So no worries.
Well, Mike, you look sharp in every configuration. The pixelated version of CJ might be a better version than the real CJ. So I offer that to you, Mike.
Oh, you're too funny, man. You're too funny. So yeah, you're right. You were lucky to get a waiver because the Air Force, I mean, they are definitely they're the Quakers of the conservative religions out there.
Yeah. Yeah, even now, like I'm at two, I'm at 207, 207, and according to the height weight ratio, it generates a BMI of like over 30.
Yeah,
And
yeah. My
yeah,
BMI has said that I'm borderline. Going on 24 years now, and I tell my fellow colleagues or the folks that work with me, I said my goal is to wear the same set of blues at my retirement that I came in as a second lieutenant. So if my BMI says I'm borderline, I'm like, well, I guess I've been borderline for 24 years. There must be something behind that. So the whole system is so dumb. I mean, look
yeah,
how thick your neck is and your delts. I mean, somebody like you, like, yeah, you need to really watch what you eat because your BMI is a little out there. You're like, bro, I got a 19-inch neck and I wear a 46 jacket. What is it you want from me?
yeah, exactly, Mike. I wish I had the discipline of wrestlers because wrestlers can, on demand, get to a certain weight and they'll just sacrifice and life will be miserable. Mike, I'm not that Huckleberry. I can't do it. I can't do it. Yeah, I can't do it. It's just, and like you said, the genetics of each person it does vary such that it's unrealistic. And like, what are they going to say? Like, Mike, one of the best pilots in the last 24 years. Really? Like, is he really? He's really not borderline. Some.
It's silly. I remember once again his name escapes me, but when I was a lieutenant in the missile silos out in Cheyenne, Wyoming, we had an offensive lineman from the Air Force Academy, and they released him because his waist was over the maximum. I want to say at the time it was like 38 inches or something like that. Like the guy's 6'4", 300 pounds of just pure Samoan strength. He's not going to have a 36-inch waist. I mean, culturally, that's just his bone structure. But no,
Yeah,
they released him. He was an Air Force Academy starting offensive lineman, and they released him.
yeah,
Silly how many people we lose based on some bureaucratic number that somebody's decided is where the line in the sand is. So it's silly. All right, want to transition?
of course.
You mentioned leadership
Hmm.
earlier. And you also mentioned your ROTC wing commander and his influence on you. I'm big on mentorship. Anybody that reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I want to go to pilot training," or "Hey, what does it take for me to become an officer?" I will do anything and everything to try and help them along the way. Who is your most significant mentor that got you into the Air Force and that path that led you to comm officer and obviously a very successful career?
Hmm. Yeah, Mike. I hope it's been successful. That's a good point. Maybe we can ask the folks with whom I've served if I've served successfully. I hope. I would offer there's two folks that have been absolutely critical to me deciding to serve, and then another person that has been such a model of service that I wanted to emulate that he knows to some degree, but then there's probably details he doesn't know that I've observed and absorbed from him that is the driver for my continued service and how I try be to provide value to the service and others. The first is my brother-in-law, actually. His name's Randy Bradley. He's currently a vice president at Northrop Grumman in St. Augustine, Florida. When I was younger, around age 7 to 8, he was a lance corporal in the Marine Corps stationed out at El Toro here in Southern California. And one day he took me to El Toro for a Marine Air Show. And from that absolute moment, I knew I wanted to fly airplanes. And I wanted to do it in the Marine Corps. Randy, to me, probably comprises every excellent attribute that the U.S. military proffers or suggests is the model for officer and enlisted behavior. He's tremendous. He separated after maybe his first enlistment, and has gone on to tremendous father, senior leader at Northrop Grumman, and just probably the top two best Homo sapiens I've had the opportunity to encounter. He's the core reason that I joined the service, because after that point, I got a little smarter. Well, maybe not. Who knows? But who knows, Mike? Actually, that's up for debate. But I kind of triangulated that the best opportunity to fly might be through the Air Force. He gave me, he was there for my commissioning at Washington State, and he rendered me my first salute.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so rad, brother. That was so cool. And gosh, there's so much more. Like while I was in college, him and my sister facilitated my first internship for a company called Honeywell. You guys, if you're familiar with Honeywell, they're very well known for designing and producing the thermostats in a lot of infrastructure. So I was there working.
Oh, they do all sorts of stuff for
Yeah,
us in the military. Yeah.
yeah. He's been he's he's always provided opportunity, and but the way in which he just is as a person, the way he leads at Northrop Grumman, the way he is with his kids, my nephew and niece, the way he treats my sister, the way he treats me, my family, it's very much an extension of the best values out of the Marine Corps. And he was like the reason why I wanted to join the service, just even as an officer. If I couldn't, when I couldn't fly, obviously I was pretty devastated, and I was questioning, do I even want to do this? Why am I going to be in the military if I can't fly? But I did harken back to, like, man, I still can learn a lot from being in the military for a few years at a minimum, simply because I saw what it did for my brother-in-law. So Randy's like the core reason. Since I've been in service, there's a retired colonel named Dave Pond. He's a tanker guy. He retired. He might have retired 2006, no, 15 or 14. But Mike, this is crazy. He's promoted me major, lieutenant colonel, and colonel. Mike, he's presided.
And how did you meet this guy? How did you meet him?
When I when I was assigned as a captain, I was actually assigned to the air staff at SAF-IA, and so Air Force International Affairs. And at the time, it's that organization was much
So
different.
in the Pentagon, you were at SAF-IA in the Pentagon as a young captain? Okay.
Yeah. I was I only been pinned on for a year, 2 years, and this is when we were located. It's a different organization back then. It's now it's very different. But we were in Roslyn. We had an office space in a leased building in Roslyn, Virginia. And I know you know where Roslyn is, outside of the Pentagon, going towards Georgetown. He was a reservist that SAF-IA hired for a specific country desk, and I was in the same division. So I was in the Africa division at SAF-IA. I just gone through NPS DLI doing the FAO route, and that was an assignment that I had working at SAF-IA. He was already an accomplished pilot, but also probably one of the most seasoned foreign area officers that no one probably knew. And I just got to sit next to him for at least 6 months, just observing how he did business. And I just became just really impressed by him. He was a lieutenant colonel at the time. And then since then, I mean, from that moment, he ended up, I think after maybe 6 months, a year later, he became my supervisor based on changes in the organization. And that really accelerated my understanding of leadership and being able to, some of the core things he did is he let me sit at the table to observe all types of environments and almost in many ways shadow him. And just not to say like I should be doing everything he does, but just to give me experiences so it could be part of my overall toolkit to understand how to deal with certain situations and think through different problem sets, how to deal with certain personalities. And he did, and I got to basically, even though I was one of his action officers, he invited me to every meeting he could, to include meetings with senior leaders at the 3-star level. And from that moment on, which was probably 2008 until now, he's been one of the main drivers of how I try to treat people and how I try to add value in service. And like I said, he's been so fundamental to my understanding of when do you, like, for instance, when do you apply a coaching technique in order to drive a behavior or an outcome? When do you need to be a little bit more directive versus just providing intent, resourcing, and authority? When do you just need to do nothing and just let things develop? I've learned he's probably the best leader I've seen apply each of so many different mixes of techniques that I've had some opportunity to really absorb over the years and add those to my toolkit. I'm not a good practitioner, probably, Mike, but at least in my mind, I know what it looks like and I've seen it. And in many ways, like my service and my command right now is just almost an emulation of Dave Pond.
Having that experience as a captain, my goodness, that's priceless. That's rare in the Air Force. Us in the Air Force are typically the weapon system expert operating very expensive machinery until we're majors or lieutenant colonels before we start to get that experience. So you getting that at a captain level, that puts you way ahead of your peers. And that's from me saying that from the pilot world, you developed emotional intelligence far earlier than a career typically builds in the Air Force. So you were more like a Army or Marine Corps where you were getting that mentorship at a young age. I'm jealous. It took me a long time to figure that out. So I'm jealous that you had somebody there to allow you to be the fly on the wall.
Yeah, Mike, you closed that
So,
gap pretty quickly, though.
well, I appreciate that. And it mostly happened because when I flew RPAs, drones, as most people know them, I was having all sorts of back and neck issues.
Mm.
The ergonomics of the seat is terrible. No lumbar support. All the computer screens are off to your left. They've since improved this, but at the time, all of your computer screens were off to the left. So your head was like at a 30-degree angle for 5-6 hours at a time. So I started to get all this terrible neck and back pain, and that's when I finally realized, oh, not everybody is an exceptional athlete that gets hundreds on their PT scores all the time and does everything with ease. People struggle and have these aches and pains and have these issues that I've never had to experience. And so from that point on, it was a complete 180 for me. And I started to really have empathy and sympathy for others
Mm.
who were struggling. And so it took a long time for me to do that. Prior to that, my whole life was making sure my performance report was the best and making sure I had the best PT score, making sure I had the best uniform, the best everything. It was just me, me, me. What am I doing? How do I get a stratification that says I'm number one and you name it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It took me a long time to figure out that if you take care of other people, all that other stuff, it takes care of itself. But it took working with some really exceptional people, like you mentioned when you were a young captain, for that to take place. And I know that you joke around about lack of intelligence and, oh, I just played football and all this stuff. But when we were at Eisenhower, even though we didn't have any classes together, you had a circle of people there that would just follow you around just to listen to you. And you just had such a good nature about you that literally there's like this little bumblebee group of people that was always following you around. So your charisma and like I said, your emotional intelligence has made up for all those other things that you thought you could have been lacking in, like not being a pilot. Who cares? The future, like we talked about before, the future of the Air Force is intel and cyber. Sorry, pilots, but that's the truth. So until you embrace that, um, you're going to be behind the curve. So yeah, in the long run, you're the winner. You have developed skill sets that we need. Me sitting behind closed doors talking about $1 trillion decisions that are going to impact the next 20 to 30 years, they all involve conversations about you. I mean, your career field, the intelligence career field, and not a whole lot of talking about fancy fighter pilots. Now, granted, me being a C-17 guy, yeah, we need cargo airplanes. We need them to go take the heavy stuff where they need to go. But when it comes to these advanced technologies that we think we're going to fly all over the world, and I think it's going to be more protecting critical infrastructure and the things that you guys do in your job. I mean, look at Long Beach. Look at the shipping industry. How vulnerable is that to cyber attacks? I mean, you are you are far more instrumental in making sure that that stuff's protected than us in the cockpit. What do you think? I just buttered you up and just said how wonderful you are.
Department of some sort of advanced persistent threat getting into the net. Specifically, where does the the National Guard? This is an exciting time for there's ubiquitous that this is in part like Revenge of the Nerds, or like the era. Like, I feel like I'm ogre right now, nerds, but in a good way, meaning like this is the era of the talented folks in high school that were very focused on the future use of anything related to STEM. That actually that includes all hands on deck, and some of our best folks that know how to use technologies are operators. There might be, and everyone has a part to play in this. So I think it's an exciting opportunity in an era for everyone. And while, like you said, cyberspace, space, ISR specifically, certain kinds of intel capabilities, anything related to non-kinetics is a technology that is really interesting. You still need folks that have a lot of experience of using that technology and applying it for an effect. And that's why I think the operational community's perspective is equally important.
How do we get that 8-year-old kid that used to go to the air show and was inspired by seeing these airplanes? How do we message to that 8-year-old kid now? Because everybody's into TikTok and everybody's into, you name the social media platform. I try to tell my kids, hey, if you're interested in that stuff, that's great, but realize it's also applicable in the STEM world, like you said, and becoming a cyber professional, becoming an intel professional, all that technology kind of comes together. So how do we convince that 8-year-old kid that the Air Force, the military in general? I mean, my wife gives me such a hard time. She's like, oh my gosh, here he goes again. He's recruiting. He's always recruiting. Yeah, I'm always recruiting because it changed my life. It's been nothing but a wonderful, life-changing experience and profession. So what do you do? What do you say to that 8-year-old kid who asks you when he sees you in uniform why he or she should serve?
For sure, Mike. Hey, we're on the same wavelength. My version of always recruiting is ABC, always be closing, Mike.
Yeah.
Always be closing.
We are walking billboards of what it means to serve. So when anybody ever asks me, oh, thank you for your service, or like, hey, do you have family members that are considering or that would ever consider serving? I've worked with a lot of civilians in the Office of Secretary of Defense who said, oh, I was always just so intimidated by you guys. You guys are always so serious. But she says, this is great. The military, you guys are really good guys. I'm like, yeah, we're just normal people like everybody else. You should come to the dark side and join us in serving.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I've spent some cycles thinking about this, especially when you're in official leadership roles and you're frequently in the community. But what I'm about to offer here is my thinking. I think applies just generally to sort of two items. The first is just simply smiling in uniform. It seems innocuous, could be trivial to some, but actually just being out and about in uniform smiling, it actually goes to the point of this sort of dispelling any myth that it's difficult to talk to a service member or that service members are always serious. I'm constantly smiling while in uniform out in the community to in part dispel that, but also provide, like you said, a sort of hybrid social emotional sort of intelligence incentive for folks to approach me and want to have a conversation about anything related to wearing the uniform, service, Department of Defense, California Guard, Air Force, Joint Force. Doesn't matter the topics. I try to stay conversant. So just smiling in uniform, I think, is an interesting technique. The second element is I like to kind of, maybe, I don't know if this your coaching was like this, or some of your military leaders were about what I'm going to say here is I like to meet folks where they're at. So in other words, if there's a conversation that arises, and I try to uncover and try to pull out what are interesting to them and really listen, like it's something they're passionate about. And I also always weave in social media, by the way. If it's the actual platform like Discord or TikTok or any other platform to me, for me, they're avenues for connection. So I try to weave in those types of ways in which to understand where they want to go. And I offer different ideas if they're willing to listen and they solicit it. I'll offer different ways in which the service is a way for them to achieve their outcome, or the service, they didn't know the service is your outcome, for instance. And I'll try to weave those elements in by first, one, pulling out and listening. Hey, especially if there's a question, like for example, I'll get a question, but I'll turn it around quickly and as I'll take the elements of that question and turn it around to them so I can tease out specifically what are things that might have caught their interest. And then from there, try to understand where they want to go with that interest. And always trying to find an ABC moment to suggest where service can help them there, or actually the service is the right agency for you to do that.
we are so similar in that nature. And I don't know if it's because the culture of senior military leadership teaches you how to ask these types of questions. But there was an old PGA Tour golfer from the Seattle area named Freddie Couples.
Oh
I
yeah,
think he's on the senior tour. Yeah, he's
yeah.
really good, charismatic guy. But somebody asked him, "Hey, when you're in a pro am and you're with these executives, they pay all this money so they can play golf with you that day. He's like, what do you guys talk about?" And he says, "Well, I have a rule. We don't talk about golf. All I do is ask them questions about their lives and their careers." He's like, "Yeah, I'm a golfer. I hit the ball far. I'm really good. Nobody cares. I want to hear about you." So he's developed such a powerful network by asking questions. And what you're describing reminds me of that. It's just people love talking about themselves. So why not ask them questions? And then you find the spots that are applicable. You find that commonality and you jump on that. Now, like I said, it's not always about recruiting, but it's about mentoring and figuring out what young kids are into. We just had a basketball game this weekend, and one of the kids on the team, he was getting all upset with the referee. We were 12 and 13-year-old kids
Hmm.
getting all upset with the referee. He's not even my kid. I was there taking photos, and I put my camera down, and I said, "Hey, knock it off! Stop that!"
Hmm.
And his dad is the coach, and I thought, "Oh man, I might have stepped over the stepped out of my boundaries here." But I was like, "Hey, I mean, the kid's being a little punk to the referees. This is not the way to do it." Well, last night we had practice, and I was watching the kids play, and the dad comes over to me at the end of practice. I was like, "Oh, he's going to tell me I don't appreciate you, yelling at my kid like that." And he came up to me and he said, Mike, I want to say thank you." I was like, "Well, why is that?" He said, "Because a lot of times my kid won't listen to me, but he'll listen to other adults." And I said, "Hey, sir, I feel the same way. If my kid's acting in a way that needs some redirection from another adult, by all means, speak up." And so it was just a reminder that yeah, we all want the best from people, but don't be afraid to ask questions and just be there for them.
Yeah.
So good for you, man. How big is your group? How big is the team you're commanding out there?
We've got about 340 folks in the ops group. The wing itself is around 770.
Okay. And so just by asking questions, what has, in your time in command, who has surprised you the most when you ask questions? Who
Hmm.
out there just has such an amazing story where like, my goodness, I would have never known that if I hadn't asked the question. Who in your unit?
Hmm. Mike, I'm pausing here because there's so many talented Homo sapiens in the 185th Ops group. It's hard to. I can give you top three maybe.
Okay.
If you're okay with that. I will. I'm going to anonymize the names here, but I have one. I have a company grade officer. Oh no, he just promoted to field grade. His client on the civilian side is TikTok America,
Mm,
and he's
that's a
responsible.
wee bit controversial right now.
I know, which is very
Supreme
fascinating.
Court has something to say about that.
I right. He's responsible for developing TikTok America's, I will say in commercial terms, cyber security program. I'll just say it that way. So in other words, very much being able to for TikTok America to be able to sort of do penetration testing of their own network to discover whether there are anomalies, and then from that data, then execute different types of remediation sort of activities. He's responsible for developing that for TikTok America. He's a very fascinating individual on that side. And then on the military side, I didn't quite understand his journey from prior enlisted to where he is now as a weapons and tactics officer. So, but discovering what he does in the outside and just how relevant that is to American society, because we just talked about TikTok, it's tremendous. I have another company grade officer. He owns a really fun sports bar. Really fun sports bar. And I think that's a really fascinating detail that I've uncovered because, obviously maybe we're a bit biased, but sports means a lot to us, not just for the athletic pursuit, but all the other lifelong skills we've learned and exhibit today and possibly proffer to others. But like sports bars to me are like the venues where you bring together a disparate collection of Homo sapiens, typically for a unified effort to watch your team or many teams, but certainly to watch athletics. And I love that we have this notion of a sports bar in our society because it's not global. Like, I know you've lived in Europe or visited Europe and elsewhere. You don't find sports bars of like an American sports bar anywhere else in the world. And it's typically an environment where there's so much energy and positive vibes. I love that, and he exhibits that too. So discovering that about him and it gave me more insight to him personally of having a sports bar and what it means to him and why he enjoys it. I've got an NCO who is a single parent, and it's only until recent that I really fully understand the challenge she endeavored being a single parent and the sacrifices she's made to be a single parent, and why the Air National Guard is, and her career and her goals in the Guard are so important to her. In many ways, she sacrificed those goals when she was in the regular Air Force on active duty. And now that she's got herself stabilized in such a way that she can now re-pursue those goals in the Air National Guard, it's only through being able to have several conversations with her and having a relationship to where I can ask questions and she'd be willing to provide details of things that are important to her. The level of moxie and grit and determination and just persistent will to overcome adversity is so inspiring, Mike. Whenever I think about it, or we're having a conversation and she gives me some details to it, internally I'm like, I just want to be like the dude that's like 1/3 of that. Like, I'm just so impressed by her will and determination. It's very similar to when we played sports, because you have to be that way if you're going to achieve. Even if you are super talented, doesn't mean you're going to be a good player. I think there's a difference there. And she's doing it every day. And I wouldn't have gotten to know that if I didn't have a relationship to where I could ask questions. And this is all the other two gentlemen too. They'll be willing to share with me these details about what they do and why it's relevant to them in society. It's been tremendous. It's been priceless, Mike.
It's funny that the three stories that you just shared had nothing to do with push-ups and sit-ups and being serious and being in uniform, which culturally, like you said, that's the stereotype that we fall into. The Guard is just a completely different animal. We have such interesting, amazingly talented people out there who just want to serve. I had a chief master sergeant when I was stationed out in Las Vegas. He was a senior vice president making millions of dollars a year at Boeing, building 737s up in Everett, Washington. I'm like, sir, chief, why are you here? He's like, because I love it. I get to be around these young airmen. It gives me all this energy and inspiration, and I just love it. And I said, well, you are a perfect reason why people should not judge a book by its cover, because here is an enlisted individual. And so any listeners that are not part of the military, that's considered the lower tier, quote unquote. And he's a multimillionaire. Um, I have another friend who is a commander of a satellite squadron out there at LA Air Station. I'm not sure what it's called, LA Air Force Base, something along those lines. But
It's still LA Air Force Base, yeah.
okay, he works for some fancy tech company, Google, you name it, Google, Amazon, one of the fancy tech companies. And in the Guard, he's flying satellites. And he says, yeah, I used to work for Lockheed Martin, and or what you name it, Northrop Grumman, you name the company, and I designed a software that this satellite flies off of. So he's like, it's pretty cool now that I get to fly it as a Guard guy when I designed it as a STEM individual, um, working for one of the major companies. I'm like, where else do you get these people? And
Unicorns.
so once again, I try to tell my own kids. I said, yes. Have I been gone a lot? Have I been deployed? Have I been away from you guys? Yes. But it is created, and having the being fortunate enough to be around such positive, amazing individuals. I use the metaphor all the time, but rising tides raise all boats.
Mm.
And we in the military are all about lifting each other up. And boy, I just don't see that out there anymore. Everybody's so worried about how many followers they have on their social media, or how they look on social media, or what people think of, their clothes or their car, or what other material items they have in their closet. And it's just that it doesn't matter. I don't know. How do we share that story? Do we not make as much money? No, we don't make as much money, but my soul is filled with positivity, and just I can't imagine not being part of this organization, this institution.
Absolutely.
So,
100
I mean, we would have never met, right? We're at Eisenhower. I'm randomly taking photos, and I'm in a completely different class, but we meet because of that that culture that brought us all together. And so there's a lot of folks that I still reach out to at Eisenhower, and I'm so thankful for being part of this.
Yeah, your photography without question brings folks together. That's another fascinating aspect to Mike, so to speak. That in itself is one of the best ways to when you're capturing folks in different environments, particularly important environments. You become almost it's so it's intimate. You develop a
Hmm.
unique relationship with folks through photography.
That's what I like about it. I like the fact that once somebody trusts you to take their picture, there's a level of vulnerability of, okay, you're not going to make me look bad. You're not going to make me be in some sort of compromised position.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to Chief Bass last week, and I said, all right, Chief, when are we going to do this podcast we keep talking about? And she's like, oh, Mike, I don't know if I'm ready to go that deep with you. And I laughed. And it's because when she came over here to do some headshots, I mean, we had a 45-minute heartfelt conversation, sharing a lot of personal things that she's probably afraid that I would ask if they were on camera and microphone. But I keep telling her, like, Chief, that's what makes you such an inspiration to others, is that you're willing to share, your successes and your failures. We all didn't come from these white picket fence backgrounds. And so that provides the inspiration to our youth to say, you know what? Look at her. She was in charge of 300,000 airmen in the Air Force as the first female chief master sergeant in the Air Force. Like, I would have never had that chance to have that conversation if it wasn't for the camera and taking those pictures, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's tremendous. Yeah, yeah, I didn't think of a podcast in similarly, but I get that's true. Very much true.
Yeah. But once again, as a senior military officer, you realize, I think General Brown was talking about emotional intelligence and just the non-standard leadership. We got to get away from who's the weapon school patch, who's the fighter pilot, who's the, you name it, whatever sexy toy you want to describe, and who actually gets to know their people and can get their people to align towards one single message and towards one single goal. That's far more powerful than, uh, I keep saying the fighter pilot, but it's far more powerful than that one person. uh, yeah,
I
the
agree.
organization it's the people, man. It's the people that make it happen. And I just thank you so much for having a chance to come chat, because guys like you, I mean, I read that article in the National Guard magazine. I was like, CJ, dude, this is good stuff. If I was a young kid and I was looking for guidance and leadership and somebody to look up to and somebody to mentor me, I would be looking up your email address, because it was awesome.
Mike, you're too
You might
kind.
think about doing that, dude. You might think about doing that. You might think about posting stuff like that on, what your guard unit, or if you guys have a magazine for your state, share that article and leave your email address, leave your phone number. Like, I'm here for you because I know that you are.
Yeah. I didn't never thought of that. I didn't think it. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. In many ways, I authored it to share some things out, to share some thoughts that I thought they're important to me, that were important for my
Mm.
development. Didn't think it would have much viewership. So, but I appreciate the comments, Mike. Thanks for one, reading it, and then two, it resonating with you, and then three, yeah, I'll take a look at, see if I can see if anyone would be interested in distributing it or sharing with the wider state.
Yeah. Well, bud, I am so glad that we connected, and I know that um, you're going to do great things, no matter how long you choose to serve or take the uniform off. When you're ready to take the uniform off, brother, give me a call, because that's what this is about. It's about helping everybody succeed. I just had one of my colleagues over here yesterday take his headshot. I saw his picture on LinkedIn, and his name's Mike as well. I'm like, Mike, bro, your picture is atrocious. If you're in the world of business development and trying to grow the brand of the company you're working for, you need a headshot. He's like, oh, okay, okay. So he came over here. He came over here yesterday, and I sent him 10 photos or whatever. He's like, dude, these are great. Like, yeah, why don't people invest in themselves? I keep telling them, social media. People are scrolling so fast that if you don't figure out a way to get them to stop and just give you an extra 1 or 2 seconds of their attention, you're wasting your time.
So true,
So I
Mike.
was like, dude, have a headshot to get those businesses out there that you're interested in working with, get them to stop for that extra 1 or 2 seconds on your page. Be like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to reach out to this guy. I have so many people reach out to me and like, hey man, I heard you do headshots for veterans. Yeah, man, come on over. I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
Rising tides.
But you're good
Raise
at
all
it.
boats.
But you're really good at
Well,
it,
I
Mike.
appreciate
I
that.
mean, so,
But we all have different skill sets, right?
yeah.
And so I know that that's one of my skill sets, that if I can use it to help others and somebody gets a job someday and someday they become the next Peter Thiel billionaire PayPal guy. They're like, man, that Mike guy, he was a good guy. He's got that voice for Valor thing. I would love to support him. Sweet, brother. You became a successful billionaire? Sure. Drop a check in my account every year and we'll get this page growing to get other people inspired and serving.
Dude,
So
one
that's my
thing,
soapbox.
I love it, man. The one thing I'm glad you said, if this is one of your final comments, when you said invest in yourself, I love that. I just want to add another layer to that. I just want to add that double down on yourself. I love the idea of investing heavily in oneself. Who else is going to do it?
Yeah. No one else is going to do it. Growing up as an officer, nobody cares about your performance report as much as you do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Nobody really cares until they get to know you. And then once they get to know you, they'll go that extra mile for you. But if they don't know you, whatever, man, they just move on.
Right.
So I hope that our conversation, there's an 8-year-old out there that says, man, what is this STEM stuff? What is this? Oh, there's scholarships. Washington State has scholarships that'll allow me to go to school, learn something cool, and come out the other side as a senior officer that gets to lead and work with others and be part of a culture that changes lives. Sign me up. So if we get one, that's all it takes. We get one.
Wonderful, Mike. In fact, I'm gonna tell the Washington State president that sentence was just articulated by Mike. He may want to be your next podcast guest, by the way.
There you go. Take that soundbite. Let's get Washington State in the house. Last thing. My dad is a University of Washington medical school graduate. He now wears Wazoo gear because he lives out in Eastern Washington. I'm like, Dad, you are a UW grad and you have a Wazoo polo shirt on. He's like, yeah, I got to be part of the team. I'm like, oh my God, the Huskies, if they knew you were wearing the Devil's red, they would never forgive you.
I salute you, Dad.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So,
Mike.
brother, thank you so much for spending time with me today. And I didn't even get to. I think I wrote down 10 questions. I asked 3 of them, which means you have been a hospitable guest, and I enjoyed the time with you.
Yeah, thanks for the time, Mike. I'm tracking your retirement as well. And I'll see if I might be in the area. There's a good chance. If so, I'll be there.
Yeah, I appreciate it, buddy.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thanks, Mike.
See you. Yep.